Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, content creation has been the subject of major disruption during Mike Porter's time within the industry, and it is now at the start of another transformative revolution with the advent of artificial intelligence. As founder of PMC Content Services, Mike joins us now to discuss the ever-changing world of content creation. Mike, I'd like to start the interview by discussing your background and when you first discovered your entrepreneurial flair.
Hello, Karl. Thanks for having me. Yes, I've kind of been an entrepreneur, I think, all my life. I just never really executed on that until probably the early 2000s. But I started off as a consultant in the printing and mailing industry, where I'd had decades of experience working in that industry in various organizations, and I helped companies that were doing high volume documents to improve their operations. So insurance companies, banks, service providers, and people like that. And started doing that in the consulting business. And then at one point, we started to talk to some small and medium-sized companies that were vendors in that industry, and I started asking them how they were promoting their businesses, and found that there was a deficit there. They just didn't have the abilities to compete with their larger competitors, and they needed some work to do. And I had done some content marketing on my own behalf, and decided to do that for some others, and that just kind of grew from there.
And fast forward 17 years, is the print mail medium still an effective advertising channel for businesses today, in your opinion?
It is, Karl. Thank you for asking. That's a thing that people have a misconception about. We obviously have a lot of choices now on how we can do the marketing. So the role of print has changed. It's no longer probably the primary way of communicating with customers and doing lead development, but it's definitely a tool to help to get you there. And it's really good at initiating contact.
Another underutilized tool in the marketing mix, I think, is the use of case studies. What have been your experience of those?
Case studies are probably one of the most valuable things that we do for our clients, and we do them maybe a little differently than some folks. We interview the subject matter experts at our clients first, and then we interview the actual customers, and get a lot of quotes and interesting comments by doing it that way. And they're very versatile. I have one customer that through a single case study, they used it on their website, they used it in their newsletter, they printed it for handouts at trade shows, they used it for salesperson follow-ups, and they even had a national magazine pick it up and publish it for free to their subscriber list of 40,000 people. So they got a lot of use out of just a single piece of content there.
And what are your thoughts on the use of white papers?
White papers are definitely good for lower funnel type of lead nurturing activities. White papers allow a company to demonstrate their thought leadership and to provide a lot of value with content. And in content marketing, sometimes we have a tendency to kind of focus on the marketing part, and the content part of it, where you're actually providing value with the content that you're creating, I think is really important for people to understand, and white papers are really good for that.
And Mike, in a world of mass distraction in 2023, what is the secret to building brand awareness?
Well, it's not easy, for sure. It takes a consistent effort. And that is one of the things, the challenges that most of these companies have that we work with, is to continually publish. because as you know, even with all the tools that we have, social media and email and direct mail and websites and paid placements and all those kinds of things, there's just so much information coming at people that you have to consistently provide an opportunity for those folks to become exposed to that. So I'd say the biggest challenge is repetition and consistency and providing value so that people will consistently consume your content. If it's all sales oriented and product oriented, then there's not a lot of value there for a possible customer unless they're already in the market and looking for that particular product. So developing those customers takes content that provides some informational value for them and helps them to do their jobs better or gives them some information that they didn't have. And it also improves your reputation as a company that understands what's going on in the business and can be a source of knowledge that's helpful to you.
And what would you say to business owners that are fearful and probably a little bit critical of the fact that they would need to prove the value up front by giving away so much of their knowledge and expertise before they ever get paid for it?
Good question. I struggled with that myself, actually, when I first started doing that. And what I've discovered is that it doesn't matter. The value that you get from providing that kind of information and establishing a reputation in the marketplace as a company that is worthwhile and knows what it's doing is far exceeds the loss that you might perceive as giving away the secret sauce. And I think one thing that people believe is that, hey, if the free stuff that they're giving away is this good, imagine what benefits I might get if I actually paid for their services.
And Mike, what are your thoughts on the quote, "Red is dead and video is king"?
Video is definitely a player. We use video as well. We create video content. Oftentimes, actually, we link the video to the written content. So I have one customer, for instance, that we've done a number of case studies for them in different vertical markets that they serve, and then we create a promotional video that goes with it that kind of hits the highlights in that case study, so that we use the videos to drive people to read the case studies. So I think they both are something that you need to pay attention to. You can communicate a lot more information in a shorter period of time with video than you can in text and in written content. But the text is a lot easier to index for the search engines. So there's that aspect to it. And I think you need to have both.
Late last year, the emergence of ChatGPT took the world by storm. But how has that changed the content creation process already?
Oh, yeah, I definitely has changed it. I've been watching AI for the last 2 or 3 years, and it has improved tremendously. That the tools that are out there are fantastic. We've been experimenting with them, but they are still tools. They are not the end result. What I have noticed is that the content that those tools create is not always entirely accurate. So you need to be careful about what it's doing. It tends to make things up if it doesn't have content to satisfy your request, and it is fairly repetitious. It kind of falls into patterns, and it has definite ways of communicating that may not be in the style that you want to be. So I think it's a good starting place, and it's definitely something to take advantage of. But let's say this, I'm not worried about AI taking my job.
So Mike, finally, if you look into your crystal ball, what could the world of content marketing look like in 5 years from now?
Things are moving so fast, Karl. I think for anyone that is doing this, whether they're doing it on their own or they're using someone like us to help them with it, the important thing is to keep up on what's new, what's going on. Your questions about AI, for instance, were dead on in video. Keep up on what is going on, what is working, what is not. Changes in social media are happening all the time. So I think that the most important thing is to be aware of what's going on in that industry, trying different things to see what works for you. It doesn't always work for everyone, and just making sure that you're not getting stale.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Mike Porter from PMC Content Services, and I'd like to thank Mike for sharing his insights with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.